Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Zoom call. It's nice to see the faces. I've got it on gallery view at the moment to have a look at you all. It's very nice. So thank you for your time always. If this is your first time joining the Zoom call, we're creating quite a library. It's really nice. The weekly newsletter that goes out, or monthly newsletter for the USA and Canada, has been adding in all the other recordings that we've done the last month. Gosh, it's been a month. So there's a little library now of these recordings so that you can access at any time, which is really helpful. So welcome and thank you. Thank you for your time. So one thing that I wanted to share with you guys today, I actually asked the teachers after the last Zoom call if there was anything they felt that this platform should highlight, or anything that I should be focusing more on. And it was actually really sweet. There wasn't that much response, which either means people forgot to answer, or we're too busy, or there was nothing much that we really needed to focus on that we weren't already focusing on. But one thing that I've been very aware of, and I actually had the opportunity to talk about it today, was the things that we need to remember to keep going in our own practice. And I wanted to talk about that, about how to make your practice more effortless, how to make your practice more consistent, and the times when it feels challenging and you want to perhaps give up or do anything else but close your eyes and meditate, or, when those voices come in and say that it's not working, or, you're never going to get it. You feel like you're going backwards sometimes, those times. That there's always something that, even if you keep a note beside you somewhere, just so you can refer to it and remember that the process is working for you regardless of how it's looking. Part of the journey of, union with the infinite, dancing with your infinite self, however you want to word it, is actually surrendering to whatever is showing up in your life right now. And as an Ishaya, as a ascender, that word surrender comes up a lot for us. So does the word allow. The word allow is a lot less scary, so let's start there. And it's basically coming to the same point anyway. When we first begin our practice and we know that we want a different experience of life, we're looking for this happiness or this purpose, meaning. Maybe we want to have experience life with a better health or without so much pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. Everybody comes to a point when we ask for something to change. So, and usually that's when what drives people to come to meditation. I wonder if you heard that ding. I just got a message come up. Oops, I should tell them to go away. It's busy here. The thing that helps people to start a practice and then to continue with it is kind of a little bit of trusting that things are changing for us and that we're on the right track, a path that works for us. And usually that comes from just this innate knowingness that it is true to us. It's something we believe in, we trust it, and we recognize in ourselves that this is something we want to do. The other thing that helps us to keep going is seeing the changes. We start to recognize that we are being more kind to other people, or we are experiencing more joy within ourselves. Or we do have moments of this just simple peacefulness, which we didn't have before because we were in a lot of reaction, perhaps. So seeing the evidence around us is something else that gives us this level of trust that the process is working for us, and that what we're doing is moving us in the direction we want to be moving in. But what seems to affect people and make people question what they're doing, or question themselves, question their own ability. We hear the big words like enlightenment and union with God. self-realization. And these are huge sounding concepts. And so most people pick up some sort of idea of what it must be like to actually hit this goal. And I can tell you that every single idea that you have is wrong, because it's beyond the ideas, it's beyond the concepts. The mind is the conceptual part of us, and the experience of the stillness is beyond the mind. So however you think it's going to be, it's incorrect. It's not true at all for you. So when we have the experience of ascending a lot, and then perhaps we have a very busy day thinking, lots of thoughts going on, lots of old patterns triggered, emotional connections to those thoughts, and sometimes it feels like it just can't stop. There's no way out. Those are the times when your practice is did I say the word commitment? I didn't. I said the word surrender, didn't I? It's where the belief in what you're doing is sort of like amplified, because it's easy to keep going and to trust everything when it's just all smooth sailing and you're just dancing along and you're happy and there's nothing wrong in your daily life. And then suddenly, something's triggered. There's a lot of emotion there, a lot of thoughts, and it just doesn't seem like it's good enough. Those are the moments that you need to be aware that whatever is being presented to you is from God. It's from the universe. It's not personally yours. It's not personally your fault. You didn't do anything to experience this. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not needing to try harder. It's simply that today had a lot of energy and you were experiencing that and very conscious of it. And perhaps there was a lot of triggers that were firing off a lot of these old patterns and beliefs. The practice of ascension is so direct that we learn to see this stuff and to use our techniques even more in those moments, or to find those times to close our eyes if it feels a little bit overwhelming. And if that's even impossible, you just believe, just trust in yourself that this is going to pass. And if we all look back on our ascending life, it does pass. Everything comes and goes. Sometimes it takes a little longer than we want it to. But again, that's us taking it personal and believing that we're in control here. The most beautiful part of this practice is actually realizing that whatever is showing up in our day-to-day is absolutely fine. And it's supposed to be there. Who knows why? It's not up to us to have that answer. But for us to just trust and to allow whatever's there to be absolutely perfect. Another gift for us to just play with whatever's going on, create the space, use the ascension attitudes, allow, surrender to it, and to see those patterns of judgment that can kick up so quickly, saying that I'm doing something wrong or I'm not good enough with this. It's just not true. What's really, really great about this practice is the more we become aware of those silly thoughts that we listen to that rob us from that beautiful experience of peace and purpose and meaningfulness in our life, those old patterns that just sometimes seem like they're very real and we are believing in them, but we always have a choice. That is the practice of ascension, is that you actually start to become aware of the choice that you actually have and how you can consciously choose something different. The techniques guide you in that direction. And if you know how to just rest in this moment and then use your techniques from here, you're already dancing in the heart of God without trying to do anything or look for anything to change. So the most important thing, there's always the most important thing. Everything is so most important. A really good thing to be playing with and remembering is that you're not in control of how your experience looks. It's not up to you whether today is cloudy or blue skies. You don't have the control over that. You don't wish to change the clouds. It's just happening, right? And so exactly the same with your practice and your interaction with your world is it's being presented to you, and your job is to make the choice to have an inner experience of peace and presence that reflects who you really are and who's really showing up for life today. And you have the ability to do that, which is really exciting. And you know what? Sometimes we forget, and that's no big deal. And other times it just seems to, glide on through, and we're really, really excited about that. But, it's a learning process. Some things are just sticky sometimes, and you do react, and it just doesn't matter. So the more that you just play with that innocence of whatever's been experienced or whatever's coming to you, whatever's in your experience now, the less personal it becomes. It's not because of you. It's not your fault that there's a lot of feelings or emotions today, and it gives yourself that ability to just observe, allow whatever's there to be okay. The surrendering part, I changed words from surrender to allow, because allow sort of allows us to allows us. It sort of invites the idea of us just being present to and being completely open and non-judgmental. That's what the word allow refers to for me. Surrender almost feels like an action. There's something that I need to do, something I need to surrender to. So to me, sometimes the word choices can have a bit of a connotation that gets in the way. So whatever works for you. It's, again, the word surrender is almost, it's the same. It's just recognizing where there's this voice or this me wanting to control and wanting to do it my way, or believing that whatever's in front of us in this moment isn't right. That is the foundation of all pain and suffering. This idea that something needs to change, and that whatever's happening right now is somehow wrong. Somehow there's been a mistake here, and I've been delivered misinformation or been placed in a situation which I do not want to be in. Or these emotions that I'm experiencing are just bad. I shouldn't be experiencing this anymore. And the truth is, hey, you're human. So the judgment of what's going on, again, is going to take you from your own power, take you from your own peace. When you allow yourself to just recognize what's happening and surrender all ideas of separation, all concepts of what's right or wrong, then what is left is simply presence. You're simply present to what is. And you're starting to dance in your life then. It doesn't mean that you have to be flooded with joy. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that you're simply present to it without any judgment. I can't remember if I've talked about this in the other Zoom calls, but one of my favorite analogies is like having a video camera. The video camera observes and records, but if you weren't recording, you were observing. You don't actually have, the video camera doesn't actually have a personal preference of what it is seeing, what it is in the midst of. It's simply there, and there's this ability to simply observe. We're exactly the same. We have the same mechanism. We have the same mechanism to be so gently present in this moment without a personal attachment to what's right or wrong, that we can simply be in the experience without needing to change it, without judging it as bad, without needing anything to be added to it. But what we do is, because we have memory, because we think, we then judge, and we don't like what's being presented to us, and we want it to change. And right there, suddenly we have this feeling that something's wrong. Okay? It all makes so much sense. We kind of go around in the same circles and explain it in 100 different ways. But the very first technique that everybody on the Zoom call probably has refers to the belief that there's something wrong, and the ability to flip that, to dissolve that, to transcend that feeling, to allow it all just to naturally change into the presence of just what is, what simply is. And that's right there as freedom. When you're not focused on what's wrong, and when you're not focused on the lack, when you start to just recognize what is, there's this feeling of presence, of connectedness, and this inner experience of contentment. the inner experience of peace and contentment reflects into the outside. And you start to see that peace and that contentment around you no matter what's happening. So going back to the times when it doesn't feel like that's happening and it does feel like there's something wrong and something needs to change, really the thing to remember is just to trust. I don't like to use the word process, like trust the process, but it really does appear to be like that. We're in this dance of learning. And so it's trusting the process, that all the things which are moving and changing in our experience are part of our growth. It's part of our journey. Not one part of that is wrong. So as much as it's not a process, but it appears to be one, it's allowing whatever you're experiencing to be okay. When you get really good at that, when you start to experience for yourself that you just don't react very much, it's not that you don't have an opinion or that you don't have desires. It's not that at all. You're just not attached to it. You're not attached to your opinions being right or circumstances changing because of your opinion. You're not attached to your desires if they fulfill or come to fruition or not. You're not attached to that. So it's not about being complacent. It actually is the opposite. For me to experience the inner contentment and that absolute peace that comes from being present is a very active movement of my own expression out into the world. Like, it's almost as if something gets triggered when there's no thought patterns left. Well, not that they're not left, when you're not believing them, when you're not stifled or stopped by those ideas that you can't or you don't like, these ideas that come up. Those thoughts stop us from actually stepping out and into the magic of this world. They stop us from trying new things, being creative. They stop us doing a lot of things, actually. I can't really think of much more right now. It's not there. But it's amazing how much gets stopped by the I can't thought or the that's not me. I don't like that, And then suddenly you just don't experience this window, this wide open window of opportunities in your world. And when that stuff's not there or when you're not listening to it, it's like that window is huge for life to keep giving you opportunities to be more of who you are. And that's what I love. It's like you will never become someone else. You might have role models. You might have people that inspire you. This Zoom call, the purpose of this is to inspire you to be who you are. It's definitely not to inspire you to be like me. I'd hate that. Don't do that at all. We don't want any more. We don't want any clones and we don't want any more Jayas in the world. One's enough. But the invitation is for you to step into who you are. And I heard that years ago. There was one time I was living in a center in Australia and I was just getting annoyed. I was just annoyed. I was annoyed with the teachers. I was annoyed with the teaching. I was annoyed with, I don't know, what we were doing, what we did during the week instead of teaching on the weekends. Just a lot of things were starting to bug me. And so I asked for help. I asked for some teachers to help me. And I was like, right, okay, I'm not seeing something. Everything's annoying me. And it came down to, that teacher acts like that. That teacher does this. That Ishaya does this. And I had all these judgments around it of whether they were good or bad. It doesn't matter. But the main thing that I saw, besides that I was thinking and judging, was that I had this idea that I had to be different. And if I was different, then I was good enough. I had to be like the most conscious person in the center. I had to be, well, actually, at that time, the people in the center are all very quiet, and I'm not a very quiet person. They all laughed very softly and spoke very softly and had very soft mannerisms. And so I took it on board that who I wasn't okay. I had to change to be anything close to enlightened, at least close to how still these guys were and how connected these guys were, because they were my role models, right? And so because I was trying to change and fit in and do things differently, that was sort of the thought pattern, the thought process that was dominating a bit of my day, just a little bit. And I was so relieved to ask for help. And I still remember to this day the teacher that said to me, why on earth would you want to be like someone else? Why? And it's so true. It's like, why do we try to change who we are to fit in, or to be loved, or to believe that we're heading towards a goal? And this teaching and these techniques, this process, this whole practice is about dissolving any idea of who you are isn't good enough, and allowing yourself to really, really, really rest in the experience that who you are is absolutely perfect, that the way you've been created, the way you express yourself is absolutely unique and needed. The way, what is a hobby for you, the way you want to bring yourself into this world is uniquely your way. It's uniquely your path. And for you to doubt that is such a shame, because then you deprive us of seeing the bigness and the brightness of who you are. And that was what I was doing. I was pushing down my expression, judging my personality or my way to try and make myself seem like someone else, someone that might be more accepted. And I think for everybody, you would experience that that's just pure suffering and a lot of pain and insecurity. Who wants to live a life like that? And, you know, a lot of people do, and it's time to stop that. You have the tools and the ability to actually dissolve those ideas and judgments around yourself, so that you can actually really truly love yourself, or every part of who you are, and recognize that if you laugh loud or laugh quiet, talk loud or talk quiet, don't talk at all or talk a lot, I mean, who cares? If you say jokes and nobody laughs at them, who cares? But the way that you are, and everything that you've been through in life that's brought you to the personality that exists now is divine. There's nothing that needs to be changed. And that's the pure love. That's the pure acceptance. And when you start to live without those filters telling you that you need to be something else, then it's like the universe gives you back you to express yourself in a creative way that is given back to the world. Like, what are you supposed to give to this world? Who are you, and where's your light shining? And it could be something so simple as just being the friendly person that's in the supermarket today, or the person that doesn't toot the horn when the car in front of you didn't go with the green light, you know, because you were just patiently waiting, resting in this infinite peace and not reacting. I mean, who knows? It could be that you want to paint. It could be that you want to take on a sport. It could be that you want to dance. I mean, who knows? But we all have it in us to express. Ding, I don't know. But it's like those voices that say we can't, that limits us in so many ways. It could be referred to in your job. You might think, you know, those voices tell you that it's comfortable to be where you're at. Don't strive for anything more. Don't put in more hours. Don't look for more ways to give to your workplace, you know, because you're at the bottom and that's okay. Or you're halfway up and only 10 people move up higher than where you are. Whatever. But those no's, or those limits, or those ceilings never give you the opportunity to be bigger. Never give you the opportunity to shine your light bright. And however it is, and whatever you get knocked back at you or embraced, at least you are shining yourself. So I'm a huge cheerleader for people to actually step into their own personality or their own mannerism, definitely their own divine being, and to let themselves feel that and express that. You know, who wants to live in a world where everyone's the same? You know, we don't want that. The Shires definitely don't care for that. We love the diversity of our enormous family. It's a beautiful thing. It takes a lot of different flavors to make a really good soup, right? And the soup of humanity is absolutely perfect, especially if you turn up and shine yourself as well. So I've kind of jumped all over the place. I don't know where we're going with this. So we talked about if you were having a hard time, to just remember that you're not in control of what you're experiencing. The thing that you have the control over is where you put your attention. You're either in the thoughts and believing those thoughts to be you and absolutely real, or you have the ability with the techniques and with the experience of the presence to learn to become more and more present and to change your experience and your relationship to those thoughts. Now, why would you want to do that? If you've been ascending for a while, you've probably realized that things are just changing without you knowing that they're changing. In hindsight, you don't react so much. In hindsight, you have more tolerance for people. In hindsight, you speak differently, perhaps, have different ways that you want to communicate. Beautiful things, loving things, supporting things. You know, it's a natural growth that happens as we start to become more conscious and start to become more enlightened. Something that I talked about, I do remember talking about this on the other Zoom calls, is, and I'll mention it again today because it's rather important. Here's another important point, is playing with being more gentle with your experience so that you're not forcing yourself to become anything or forcing yourself to ascend. Just being very gentle with who you are and what's going on. And also in your practice, playing with the alertness. If you find that you're passing a lot of time with your eyes closed and you're basically half asleep, thinking about stuff, daydreaming, analyzing what happened today or a week ago, you really aren't out of that habit of thinking. In fact, you're very much in it still because, you know, you haven't transcended that at all. And there's not a willingness in that moment. You're just caught in the process of daydreaming. So, you know, whatever, we all do it. But if we want to become more conscious and if we want, like, that idea of enlightenment, and like I said, even though it appears to be like a process and there's growth, this is where it changes and it's not a process. It's very doable, very true, very livable, and very able for you to live in the present moment without leaving that. Like, why do we need to suffer? Suffer is optional. Why do we need to think? Thinking's optional too. Why do I need to feel this unease? Well, that's a choice. Why do I feel sad or depressed or angry? That's a choice. By practicing being more alert and attentive when we use the ascension attitudes and when we close our eyes to practice ascending, you are actually training yourself to discover what the present moment is. What is that space? What is there when the thoughts are slowing down or just aren't bombarding me? What is that space like? And why do I need to leave that? Where does it go? Where does that space go when all that thinking comes back? You know? When you start to become a little bit more alert in your practice and you're willing to create that distance between the thoughts and you as the observer, you start to realize that to go back to the thoughts becomes optional. It might not seem it. It seems like they suck us out and take us away. It seems like that only because of our lack of attention. Only. The habit is to think, and so off I go and I'm thinking again. And that only happens when you're not alert. It only happens when we go unconscious again. Oh, it might be your own choice too. You might consciously choose to think, and that's a little bit of a disaster if your desire is to become one with God. the the beauty with playing with the alertness is you start to discover for yourself what it's like, what you're capable of, what is your relationship to the mind, what is your relationship to that energy or those emotions. When those emotions seem strong and really, really real for us, and we name them and we know this feeling, I know this emotion, and I can't get out of it because that's what's happened all my life. When you start to play, have that willingness to play and simply observe, you have the experience that something changes, that something shifts. It might not be that the emotion disappears. That energy can still be there because it's not up to you, remember? The clouds can be there, the blue sky can be there. It's not your personal ambition to make those clouds go away. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to be freed from it. They can be there forever. Forever there can be thoughts and emotions and the same thoughts and the same emotions. But your freedom lies in the ability to observe that, to have no personal attachment to it. Isn't that magical? It can be there, but it's not who you are. It can be there for a long period of time, and who cares? It's just what's going on today. Coming back in a full circle, it's just what's been given to you, like we were talking earlier, and you having the innocence and the ability to allow it to be there. The things of emotions too is that tendency to label them as sadness or happiness or fear or depression or nervousness, anxiety. And then once we have our label, we then have our little story. And our story could be, I know this always happens to me when I do this. This is my tendency. This is going to take 3 days to get through. We attach our story to it. And so that appears very valid and very real. And the good news is, again, if you're just that video camera, you're just simply observing, and there's no concept of ownership, personalizing, story, then it's simply there. And who cares? There's no need for anything to change. And in fact, there can be this immense feeling of peace and contentment while there's this wild energy moving, which now doesn't have a name and doesn't have a reason to be there and doesn't have a time frame. You don't have an attachment to it coming or going. It's just part of the experience right now. I get migraines every now and again, and I got a beautiful gift in the midst of a migraine one time, which is immense pain. Feels like nails are going into your head and through your eyes. And so people that have chronic pains, I love talking about this because there often feels like there's again that saying, there's no way out, that it feels very hard or it feels very challenging, tiring. And so the physical experience can be matched exactly with what we've been talking about now too. That when we experience whatever degree of uncomfortability in our body, and the common thing is to quickly name it as pain, and then we put a scale of how painful it is, compared to when I didn't have pain. So you'd scale it out of 10, or if it was 8, so you've got a lot of pain, or 11, you're dying with this pain. And so there's this story that then starts, and I got it because of what did I do to get this pain? When's it going to go? What do I need to do to get through this? Oh, I know this big pain because I've had it, for a long time. So all of this story has now been created, and it's all been created in the mind, right? It's all thoughts. And we believe that. We're attached to that, and that becomes our own story. We own that. We've got complete ownership and copyrights of that story in that moment. And so I got invited by my teacher one time when I wasn't feeling good to really, really play as gently as possible, as just being as innocent as I could and as present as I could, and just see what happens. And like when you have emotions and when you have thoughts, I mean, it can be quite difficult, right? We all have had those experiences. But pain, come on, it's there. It hurts. And, you know, when you're on a scale of 0 to 10 and you're hitting a friggin' 10, well, then, you know, no one can tell you that it's okay and it's perfect. It's like, I don't want to hear that. So I was surrendered. I said, okay, I want to have a different experience. I want to be able to transcend whatever is there to be transcended. And so in my mind, what that meant was it would all go away and I would have no pain and I'd be happy and the migraine would be over, because isn't that what consciousness is all about? Transcending. So that's what I thought. Remember what I said to you about enlightenment? Any concept you have, any ideas that you have, they are not right. They are so incorrect because they are ideas. They are limited. They have a beginning and an end, and there's nowhere to move, and there's a ceiling put on it. So I had this experience with pain. And then I had this invitation to play with simply being gentle and being as present as I possibly could be. And I want to share with you what that was like for me, because I, like I said, had my ideas of what was going to happen. And what I discovered was, well, you have your own discoveries, but what I discovered was that the more present I could be, the story fell away. The story can only exist thinking. So my story was, this is what I did to get this pain. This happens to me because I do this. This is what I need to go through. This is where it even is on my body. And this is what I need to do for it to go away. And the time frame, because, you know, I have a history with this, so I have a time frame as well. And I'm right because I know, right? And I was completely wrong. As soon as I started to be present with the voices and the ongoing story, the story dissolved. There wasn't a past history to this experience anymore. It was just happening. Okay, so there wasn't necessarily a trigger. You know, with migraines we have triggers: eating chocolate, drinking red wine, loud music, flashing lights. There's lots of triggers. Certain foods, spicy foods, they are believed to A plus B equals C equals the migraine. And so without the story, the trigger fell away. There wasn't ownership anymore that I did something to cause this. It was simply part of my nervous system and part of my experience in this moment. The more I played with being present to that, I could actually even go into the sensation inside my system and actually even feel where the pain was. And I'm a visual person, so I visualized even the color, and I could actually change that color. You know, there's a lot of different tricks with breath work and visualizations to move energy and to allow intense energy to find its way out. You know, there's lots of ideas that energy is blockage, and you just got to get the energy moving again. And I had the experience that the location and what was going on in my system could actually be manipulated if I chose to do that, right? That I could actually breathe it out, change the intensity of the pain by playing with these visualizations. What I chose to do instead, though, was to keep being as ripplingly present and as gentle as I could, to just rest into my experience, the whole experience. So there was no denial or resistance to any part of what I was experiencing. So if there was a shooting shock of pain, I embraced it. If there was, that throb, I embraced that. If there was, the sweats or the stomach sensations that go on, I embraced it all. It was simply there without any resistance. That was very beautiful for me because I didn't realize how much resistance and how much denial, or how much, what's the word, like antiness, like fighting was going on in me because of this. Like the whole system was tense because of these thoughts and this non-acceptance. And so as soon as I started to realize that there was no resistance and to really just become present, my whole body was able to just relax. The neck relaxed, the shoulders relaxed, even what was going on in the stomach, often the migraines are connected, relaxed. And so in that sense, consciously, the energy was starting to move and starting to do what it needed to do in my nervous system. But the most beautiful thing that I really discovered, and I hesitate a little bit to say this, but it was my discovery, is that the word pain refers to the past. It really does. To name anything, we have an idea of a comparison. This is called pain compared to when I don't have pain. So when I have pain, it's because of an idea of what I didn't have previously. Okay? So the idea of pain now is actually in the thought process. You may or may not follow me here. But if you stay very present to that, you may have the experience that pain doesn't exist. Not in the idea that I had, like, oh, it's all going to change and it's going to go away. But when you're simply present and there's no past or future in that, you're simply resting in this moment, completely wide open with acceptance to whatever you're experiencing, the wholeness of what you're experiencing. When you fill up your attention with that, and there's no resistance, no doubt, no need to change anything, well, in that moment, you're so filled up with the presence of God, the presence of the universe, the presence of this moment, that not one little voice can exist that calls your experience something. You can't label it. You can't name it. You have to leave that experience of being present to actually put a name on it. So that name, pain, can't exist within the present moment. The experience is the wholeness of whatever you're experiencing. So whatever the body's going through, whatever's happening, you are simply present to that without resistance. Can you imagine what that means to an amazing machine that has the ability to heal itself? When there's no resistance to its way of doing something, it can keep moving on its own way. But when we are fighting and resisting, it must slow the process down. It mustn't support it. It must be denying it its ability to do what it needs to do. And the mind's that powerful that it can do that. So what I discovered by simply having the willingness to explore and the possibility of having a greater experience wasn't that I could magically heal myself. And, I celebrate in that because I know there's a lot of people that has various degrees of pains, either chronic or in moments. And it's not about you healing yourself in that sense, in the sense of if I take this pill called Ascension, it's going to go away. No, and you don't want that. What the universe is constantly teaching us is how perfect we are and how perfect this entire world of experiences is, all of them. And yet we come in and go, oh, don't like that one. When's that one going to go? Holy cow, this one again? And so we resist and we resist and we judge and we have ideas about what we should have or how conscious I am, and so I shouldn't be experiencing this anymore. Oh, I shouldn't be upset today. I should be more conscious than that. Why? Why do we put that on ourselves and make it so challenging and so difficult? It's just those patterns and those voices. So when we realize that you can actually play with all of the resistance and all of the ideas that we have, the stories wrapped around these things, it opens us up to recognizing once again consciously of what enlightenment is really all about. To be enlightened doesn't mean this stuff stops. It doesn't mean it goes away. This is kind of coming back to the beginning of this talk again. The ideas that we have that I've got to stop having these thoughts, the ideas that we have that I shouldn't feel these emotions. No, you're supposed to have these things. It's the labeling of it. It's the judgment of it. It's the ownership of it. That's the stuff that creates the suffering. And what's so cool is as you start to see that and play with it, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's challenging, the magic starts to happen in your experience, because everything is given to us for us to know God more. Everything's given to us so that we can play more fully consciously. So we don't get given horrible presents. We get given wonderful presents. And the day that I thought of my migraine as a wonderful present, I mean, I knew I had come a million light years from how I used to deal with them when they were like the evil from the dark of the world. It was like, why me? And instead it's like, okay, universe, I'm going to play. Let's see what I can, how present I can be now. Let's see how loving I can be to my experience now. Let's see how surrendered I can be to myself now. And I think that's the greatest things that we can keep learning, is how much more kindness we can give to ourselves, how much more love we can aim at ourselves. And it's the mind that stops us from experiencing that. And when you start to see what we think and what we own as being real, it's brutal in there. That those thoughts and concepts are pretty mean, pretty nasty. So play. It's an interesting thing to play with. Another thing I wanted to mention is, because it came up with the request from the teachers, was, and it kind of wraps in with what we were talking about at the beginning too, with just when things get hard and we seem to struggle. It's easy to take it personal and to think that things need to be different than what they are. But the thing that really changes your experience is to stay disciplined to your practice. I might have mentioned this last time. I'm not really sure. And because it feels familiar, maybe I talk about it all the time. But I mean, doing a practice or having a desire to change takes a level of discipline and commitment. And as much as they might sound like those words that we might run a mile from, they're actually the most beautiful things that we can embrace. To be committed to yourself for your highest desire. Be committed to what you want to step into. Be committed to making those changes, when you realize you're reacting or getting angry at something, that you can actually make a choice and step back and see things differently. Be committed to your own growth and having the discipline to do what it takes to have that commitment. And the discipline would be, well, okay, I didn't get to ascend this morning, so I'm going to make sure I'm going to ascend this afternoon. I didn't, my schedule was pretty hectic today, but instead of watching television tonight, I'm going to close my eyes for 20 minutes or an hour and then just really dance in the infinite with my eyes closed, and then go and embrace the rest of my evening. Like, the discipline and the commitment go hand in hand, but they actually are two different approaches. I love both, and I feel very blessed that they're very much naturally inside the way I approach things. I love to see the results. I love to have commitment to myself. I feel the most happiest, besides by just being still, but by having a commitment to teach, to share, to give in any way that I possibly can give. And so I have a commitment inside of myself of how I can shine my light. I have a discipline inside of myself that fuels that commitment. I can't shine brightly if I'm attached to these thoughts. I can't be the biggest I can be and share that with other people if I have doubts in myself. And the way to recognize those doubts is through the discipline of the practice. So for you to be great is to take those steps forever to make sure that the practice of ascension is high priority to you, so that you can so effortlessly start to see the changes in the relationship to the mind. Forever, the difference between being a slave to the mind and being freed from the mind is a discipline to see what the mind is first, and then to have the experience of what is beyond the mind. And what is that for you? Where are you in your practice when you are ascending, and then the thoughts either slow down or start to become objective? They start to become outside of yourself. They're not like this mass of who you are. What is that experience like for you? And when you start to explore that more in your ascensions, guess what's happening? If you're focused on your experience, or the thoughts being objective, and discovering or curious about, well, what's actually happening here, and what am I experiencing here? If you're curious about that, automatically you're playing with alertness. You're way more alert than when you're daydreaming for the 20 minutes that you should have been ascending. And so the alertness is a natural thing that happens by you having the willingness to play with your experience and to see what the relationship you have with the thoughts. For me, I believe with this whole path for enlightenment or union with God or self-realization, those words. For me, I think there's kind of like two approaches which become the same thing. For some people, they seem to become very aware of patterns and very aware of what's going on in their mind, and what pulls them out, what they get hooked on. And that's great. It's great to have an awareness of the mind. And for some people, that becomes their path for the majority of the time, so that they start to become so aware of patterns that they can just quickly let go and experience, the space or the infiniteness that's always there when we're not thinking. I had a different approach. And it was just naturally what happened for me is I didn't care about thoughts. Once I realized I was thinking and the thoughts were the suffering, I didn't care anymore about thoughts. I was like, okay, if they're there, they're there. If they're not there, who cares? I want to know what that stillness is, that thing called the ascendant, that infinite space that the teachers were talking about that's supposed to give me my peace and my happiness. I want to know about that. Talk to me about that. Let me experience that. So when I learned that when I was simply alert, and the thoughts could become objective, they could just simply be there like a radio in another room, and who cares what song's playing. What am I experiencing? What is this space like? That's what excited me. I wanted to experience that and stay there. Learn to live there. Learn that everything can happen around me and be going on, and even mentally and physically, but I could stay completely dissolved or resting in this infinite space. That's what I wanted. And so when people talked about thoughts and patterns, that was great. That was their experience. But I wanted to focus solely on the ascendant, on the infiniteness, and learn to dance there or dissolve there. So when you play with ascending and play with the techniques, and you recognize that there's a gap, between the thoughts, or if you're simply got your eyes closed and you're just with your eyes closed, just looking in front, you notice that there's a blackness there straight away, right? Without even thinking, there's a blackness there, blackness, emptiness, space. Learn to put your attention there. It's not like I've got to put my attention there. It's like learn to stay there. When you think your ascension attitudes, be connected to that space. When the ascension attitudes fade away, stay in that space. When the thoughts pop up and you start to recognize there's a thought there, come back to that space. If the thoughts do take your attention, once you realize that, come back to that space. That space is always there. It's not some phantom mystical thing that's fleeting. It's always there. And the more that you learn to just simply stay there, you start to realize that you can. You start to realize that you can put your attention there, and your attention can become content. It doesn't bounce in and out. The thoughts don't drag you away. No, your choice is to simply be aware of that space. What does it feel like to stay there? What does the word peace mean within that space? Where is this infinite love within that space? Where's the end of that space? Start to explore that, and then see what happens to those thoughts. For me, they simply disappeared. There was no room for thoughts to even come and go when you're that attentive. And then if you do notice thoughts are coming and going, just keep putting your attention back into that space. As easy and simple as that sounds, it is. Because that's what waking up is. Waking up is learning that that's not you, those thoughts aren't you, and starting to have a relationship with that space. And this whole teaching is so basically simple, so direct, that it's basically learning to just stay in this moment. And then you start to discover, what is that like? Can I really stay here? Can I put a little bit more attention here? Where is the me when I'm resting in here? Where's this idea of who I am and what do I need when I'm resting in this space? Think my ascension attitudes into the space. Do they come and go? Do they hover? Explore, but explore the space and see what your experience of ascending is like by playing with that. And to me, that's the magic. However it works for us, we all have our own journey. And sometimes it's ripplingly clear what I was just talking about. And other days, like I said, the clouds come in and it's a bit like a ping pong ball, bouncing backwards and forwards of ascension attitude thoughts, ascension attitude thoughts. It's like, okay, what do I do here? And what you do is whatever is the most gentle and loving. Is it to not use the ascension attitude and just to observe? Is it to use the ascension attitudes more? Is it to become more alert? Sometimes it feels easier just to fall asleep. It's like, oh my gosh, I just need to rest. I'm tired. Great. Who cares? This is your discovery. This is your journey. But the space, it's like there's one word, space. I think that's going to be the name of this Zoom call. But to me, that's everything. Start to develop a relationship with that. Find out what that's like for you. Find out how you feel when you rest in that. Find out what these words like infinite love, endless joy, endless peace. I can't think of anything. See what those words mean to you, these concepts, because every language is concepts. So these words which have these ideas, see what that's like to have an experience. Because the ideas are never, ever the same as the experience. Oh, I had so many ideas about endless peace and unconditional love, and none of them match up to the experience at all, at all. And yet you have the ability to have the experience, which is like 1,000,000 times greater than language and concepts. If you just want to play with letting go and just resting in this moment and staying there, and playing with the alertness, playing with the surrender, playing with allowing whatever's there to be absolutely 1,000% perfect. There's no way you can miss your target. You know, you're already there. And that's why I say, it's kind of interesting when I say trust the process, because on one hand, it seems like this process and this growth and this learning. And on one hand, it does look like that. On the other hand, you have the ability to just rest in this moment and stay here and experience oneness. And there's no process there. There's no process whatever to be here now, completely connected to the infinite, dissolved into the infinite. There's no process to that. Yeah, so it's your journey of discovery. And the most important thing, oh my gosh, I must say that like 100 times. The most important thing is, like, I'm learning as I'm speaking how to speak differently. Another important thing is to just keep going, you know, to wrap up, go full circle again, is no matter what you're experiencing, surrender to it. Become a little bit more alert. Be playful with whatever's being offered to you, whatever's being presented to you. Allow those judgments and those ideas of what's right or wrong to fall away. And just be present to what's going on and enjoy this amazing journey called waking up. Okay, sounds good? So, oh my gosh, it's been exactly an hour. I said I wanted to go for an hour. So what I'm going to do, what we did last time, is I'm going to open up the mics so that everybody can talk, and it's going to be chaos, and you can just say goodbye and click off whenever you want, and I'll leave the recording on for a little bit, and then I'll shut it all down after a little while. So thank you again for a beautiful opportunity for me to share with you all. It's always my pleasure and my joy to do this. And the fact that it's recorded and it's up for whenever you guys need a little plug in, a little bit of a pick me up, a little bit of inspiration, I find that's a beautiful thing, no matter who's the teacher that's sharing with us. There's Zoom calls on Monday with the Colorado Ishayas. I think on the newsletter that comes out, you can hook up to the invitation link and click on that, and you can have a live meeting no matter where you are every Monday night. And this isn't 100% official, so I don't know if I should do this, but it's pretty much official that there's I advertised it last time that there's a retreat happening in Mexico, Chihuahua, end of July, the 27th of July to the 30th of July. And the North American people are most welcome to this. They want it to be a Spanish and English-speaking retreat. And so it's a beautiful opportunity to have a three-day retreat in this amazing high-altitude part of Chihuahua. And it's right beside the Copper Canyon, which is very similar to the Grand Canyon in America. So I think it's only like an hour away, so you can do some sightseeing as well. And I've just been invited to go and lead the retreat. So if you want to actually see me live and hear me teach for 2 days, 3 days, I do a lot of exercises and different approaches to help people take a whole approach to their ascending. So it's not just the inner work of watching the mind and recognizing the stillness, but also an outer. I do some outer exercises too to have a more loving connection to your world as well. So yeah, I've said it now, so I have to make it official. I'm going to lead that retreat. If you have any questions about it, you can go to the website, the Bright Path website, and it's called Adventure in the Silence Retreat. And you can also book or ask questions through Rodasi at thebrightpath.com. Rodasi. I've got it written down here. So is that, hopefully that's not back to front. I'm seeing it back to front. Are you seeing it back to front?
No, it's good.
Okay. So yeah, there we go. And also we have a brand new website up at the moment, so go check it out. There's been a lot of work put into the changes on the website, and a lot of invitation for the teachers to put up all the courses which are running. So in Canada and America, you'll see all the courses that are actually around you, and meetings and things. There's going to be a lot more traffic through that website. And it just looks really slick and beautiful too. So just go to the website and have a look for yourself. Direct your friends and family to it as well. There's a lot of great articles and things. A lot of work's been done to it. Okay, so that's the plug. That's my my sales at the end. But the greatest sale is just to keep going with your practice. Be excited to ascend. Be excited to discover the space, and to be excited to stay there and start living your life from there. Be excited to see these patterns when they come up so that you can have a different relationship with them. If you have pain, I talked about pain, be playful with whatever you're experiencing, whatever God's given you, you know. It's everything's a gift. And when you start to become more aware and less judgmental of things, you see that. You see how everything that we have given to us or presented to us or surrounding us, including our own self, our own way, is such a beautiful gift. So I thank you and respect you guys for your journey. So have a great night, and thank you for being here with me.
Bye, everyone. Matty from Thunder Bay.
Bye.
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 Nay, Rodassi from Traverse City.
Salt Lake City groups here.
Hi, Rudasi. It's Karen.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. Samadhi and Gandharva.
Samadhi, thank you for being us, Peggy.
Thank you for being on the call, sweetie.
Oh, absolutely. I loved it. It was perfect.
Where's Brahma? Oh, yeah, Brahma. Oh, yeah, there's Brahma. Yeah, look. And Mati?
Yeah?
Hello.
Hello, who's that?
Sansa.
Oh, Sansa.
Thailand.
Where are you?
Where's Thailand?
Oh,
Oh, it's Seva. Seva.
I'm with Amma. Okay, Seva and Amma signing out.
Bye.
bye, everyone. Matty signing out. Good to see you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.